Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. My name is Donnie Druin, joined every week by my main man, Richie Bradshaw. We're here to preview the Arizona Cardinals hosting the Dallas Cowboys this upcoming Sunday in Week 3. But before we get into it, go and follow us on Twitter at RichieBrads36, at Donnie Druin, follow our work at allcardinals.com or SI.com/NFL/Cardinals. Richie, my man, is a beautiful Thursday afternoon. I think it's finally starting to cool down here in the Valley. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it was only in like the 90s today, which for most people sounds crazy, but for us Arizonans, that's sweater weather, baby. Like this is turn up the heat, start to warm up. It's that awkward time of the year where it's like bring a sweater to work or school in the morning and then shed it towards the end of the day. Like it's a beautiful time of year for us, but nothing more beautiful than some NFL football. Am I right?
Dude, 100%. I know. I got out of the apartment and I'm like, I might need a jacket, man. I looked at the temperature; it was like 78. I'm like, oh my god, man, like, what is going on? But nothing more beautiful than NFL football, indeed. Week 3 is kicking off here in about 45 minutes between the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers. Week 3 is here, and we are here to talk about.
9.5.
Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe or maybe not. Somebody might have Niners 10.5 here in the.
I don't know who that is. I'm just rooting for the Niners.
My man James out west. Damn right, it's cooling off. Mornings are wonderful to water the flowers, drink some coffee, watch Good Morning Football. Hell yeah. Love you, James. Thanks for checking us out, my man.
Good to see you, James. Thanks for coming back.
Dude, James is very good people.
He's always here.
Dude, 100%. Thursday's injury report revealed a lot. We'll get to the Cowboys here in a second, but no new changes for the Arizona Cardinals. Carlos Watkins and Josh Woods did not participate. Like Ifotu was limited, and then Kelvin Beachum was full. Then we get to the Cowboys. Yesterday, they had 6 people on the injury report. Today, they added 2 more. Tyler Biadasz with a hamstring injury, who needs an MRI. And then Trevon Diggs, who did get an MRI after going through 101s during practice. A freak injury, non-contact. 1 + 1 = 3. Yeah, you could do the math. And what eventually came out of that was Trevon Diggs tore his ACL. He will not only be out for the Cardinals game here in Week 3, but the entire season as well. A very, very big blow to a Dallas defense that I felt like was playing probably the best defensive football we are seeing in the NFL currently at this point in time. A very, very big blow. Give me your thoughts on it. Maybe whether that's short-term against the Cardinals, long-term for what it means for Dallas. I'll welcome anything.
Look, you lose a player of Trevon Diggs' caliber, and it's going to drastically affect your defense. Like, I understand a lot of people like to troll Trevon because it's like, oh, look at all the yards he gives up and this, that, and the other. And it's like, dude records turnovers. And honestly, from 2 years ago where he had 11 interceptions and like over 1,000 yards allowed in coverage, like last year, I feel like a lot of people weren't paying attention to the fact that Diggs turned into a shutdown corner. And fun fact for you, Donnie, through 2 games this year, do you know what the passer rating that Trevon Diggs was allowing was?
I do not.
1.
No shit. Are you
His
kidding me?
passer rating in coverage was 1.0 is what he was allowing this year per Pro Football Focus. Like, that is absurd. But, like, you're going to lose that now. That's tough. The good news for them is they still have Stephon Gilmore, who he's so interesting. Like, not to change topics too much, but like just real quick, is he a Hall of Famer in your book?
Not on this podcast, man. Why are you bringing up the Hall of Fame?
Just yes or no, and then we'll move on.
Dude, I don't know, man. I'm not in Canton.
I'm kind of that weird. I'm not. You could talk me into it.
I wouldn't be upset if he got in.
Yeah, you could talk me into it. So
sure.
But the point is, like, he's still there, and having him is going to be big, and they still have Deron Bland, I know, has played a little bit of corner for them, too. So it's not as though they're, like, completely depleted. But, again, you take a player like that out of the equation for any defense, it's going to be a drastic difference. Now, relating it to the Cardinals, this absolutely helps in their favor, right? It's not what you want to see. You don't want to beat teams when they're at their lowest, but you do also have to understand that this is something that you're going to game plan against now. So you're going to look, you went from 2 shutdown corners to 1 shutdown corner. How are you going to use them? If Marquise Brown is getting shadowed by Gilmore, what kind of opportunities does that leave open for Rondale Moore and Michael Wilson and some of the other guys that they're going to rotate in, right? Zach Pascal, like there's plenty of different opportunities and matchups that are presented to you now because you're going to be facing a defense that no longer has Trevon Diggs. So for the Cardinals, I feel like this could very much alter the game plan that you have been working on this week. Like you have Friday and Saturday to now adjust your game plan to, okay, well, maybe things just got a little bit easier kind of thing. I think that's just kind of where I'm at, is like, this is very much a good thing for the Cardinals. But as I said, like a lot of people don't like beating teams when they're down, but it's any given Sunday, man. Like you're dealt the cards you're dealt with. This helps the Cardinals.
Yep, no, and I think everybody in the NFL will tell you that injuries happen on a weekly basis, and guys just get banged up. That is how it is. I mean, the Cardinals will be without Buda Baker come Sunday whenever he was put on IR a little bit earlier this week. They'll be without Kyler Murray. I mean, there's some very, very big names that will not be partaking in this matchup. I also think that Stephon Gilmore isn't necessarily the Stephon Gilmore that we saw in New England, right? Not to say he's like way past his prime, but I definitely don't think he's the caliber corner he was just a few years removed. And to kind of touch on the point you brought up, I think this leaves a wonderful opportunity for the Cardinals secondary receivers, not necessarily Marquise Brown, who's now likely going to get the Gilmore matchup, but guys like Michael Wilson, guys like Rondale Moore, maybe even Zach Pascal, depending on who else is in there in the personnel, to really, really leave their impact on this game. But like you said, Dallas has a very, very good defense, as is. The front seven generates a whole ton of pressure. So it's not like Josh Dobbs is going to have all day to try to pick apart the secondary anyway. And even then, man, like I think they still have like Malik Hooker. Jaron Kearse is playing really well for them right now. The Diggs injury is a very big blow. Do not get that wrong. But Dallas still has a handful of other contributors, and I definitely think they expect to maintain that high level of play. And what a high level of play, Richie, has been for this defense. They are number one currently in the NFL in yards per game with 193, points per game allowed with 5 points per game allowed through 2 weeks. I don't care who you play. I don't care what team lines up across from you on Sunday. That is very impressive. 10 sacks so far, which is interesting enough. One more ahead of the Cardinals. We'll talk about their defense in a little bit. And the highest turnover differential with +7 in the NFL. And then you talk about Micah Parsons, man. Micah Parsons is not just one of the best outside linebackers. He's not one of the best defensive players. He is just overall one of the best players in the NFL right now. The things that the Cowboys can do with him, the versatility he brings to the front seven, it's really hard to really earn that status of game wrecker. That's exactly what Micah Parsons is.
Donnie, you look at this defense and there's just so many different attributes that they bring. And Micah Parsons is absolutely one of the biggest factors that gets his defense to roll as dominantly as they do. You look at Micah Parsons as one of the best players, like you said, one of the best players, period, in football. One of the best pass rushers, one of the best linebackers, one of the best edge rushers. Wherever you line him up, number 11 is going to be making plays. And he makes life a lot easier for the guys around him. DeMarcus Lawrence last year saw a resurgence on the defensive line. You're seeing guys like Osa Odigizua has also had really good production. Dorrance Armstrong has been really good for them too. Like, you're getting a lot of production from a lot of different players, and one of the biggest reasons for that is number 11. Number 11 is doing so many good things for you. And Donnie, when you have a secondary that's a little beat up right now, you know what the best medicine is for a beat up secondary is a good pass rush. And the Cowboys have a great pass rush. So yes, you're going to be without Trevon Diggs for the rest of the year, but you still have number 11 up front. And as long as number 11 is playing football, you're going to have a really difficult time trying to do anything, because he's going to knife his way into the backfield and he's going to make life absolutely hell for whoever is under center for the Cardinals, for whoever who's under center for any other team in the league. But for Josh Dobbs specifically, this is a quarterback that has really struggled to get a lot going offensively. You know, he's still trying to get a little more comfortable in the scheme, and you definitely saw improvement from week 1 to week 2. But if we were to sit here and pretend that he's an elite pocket passer now going into his third game with the Cardinals, that's just not realistic. That's not feasible. Now he has to go against arguably the best pass rush in football, even aside from Micah Parsons. You have all the guys that I mentioned. Like, this is absolutely chaotic what you're going to be going up against. And with number 11 by himself being a game wrecker, like you said, this is, look, Trevon Diggs being gone is great. You still got the rest of them. That's
Right.
where
Yeah.
it's
And they
difficult.
still have Leighton Vander Esch in the middle too, a former first round pick. Cardinals rookie offensive tackle Paris Johnson has held up very, very well against two pretty darn good fronts in Washington and New York. Dallas is a whole new animal, man. I cannot wait to see how Paris heads up, because if Paris Johnson is really able to hold his own against Dallas, I mean, you might as well just extend him right now. I mean, that kid
Send him
is
to the
going
Pro
to
Bowl.
be right. Yeah. Just send him to Honolulu for the rest of the year. I mean, who needs him to play? Right?
Canton with Stephon Gilmore.
Moving on, I do like how you talked about the Cardinals offense and Josh Jacobs really adjusting and getting more comfortable, because I think we saw that, right? I think week one, we watched the Cardinals and we're like, man, we need to pump the brakes on everything. Week two came around and it looked like a completely different team. A little bit of that was Josh Dobbs being at home and getting another week of the system, getting a live reps with his offensive skill players and being able to kind of maybe connect the dots a little bit tighter. But I mean, just look at the numbers: 24-13 first downs, almost doubling their yards per play from week one to week two. No turnovers last week and 28 points compared to 9. I know they ended up losing, but man, you really have to be at least encouraged if you're a Cardinals fan of what you saw from the offensive side of the ball. And it left points on the board too, because if we all remember, Zach Ertz had the ball sail over his head that would have been a touchdown in the first quarter.
There was drastic improvement from the Cardinals offense from week one to week two. You saw things start to click a lot more. And I know I just took, I wouldn't say I took a jab, but I feel like some people might interpret it as a jab at Josh Dobbs. Totally understand. But he did make improvements from week one to week two. There was a lot more consistency in what he was trying to do with the guys that he was throwing the football to, right? You saw Marquise Brown was able to get involved a little bit more. You had the Zach Ertz play. Michael Wilson was showing up a little bit. You're hoping that in week three, you can really start to get things settled down. And this will be a really good checkpoint for Josh Dobbs and for the offense to see where you're at. Because if you find a way to show that you've made that progress week to week to week, and you do it against a really quality defense, that's a big win. So yes, they have made some really good steps forward. And you look at the stats that we have right in front of you here. I mean, you nearly doubled your first downs, doubled your yards per play, completely cut out your turnovers, which, if we're being honest, they're going to turn the ball over against Dallas. That just feels inevitable. And then 9 points to 28 points. Donnie, they're moving in the correct direction. Obviously, it's going to be a very difficult point to see where you're at, but definitely have to be happy with the direction that they're going right now.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, with such a established run first mentality from this offense, how it'll hold up against probably the best front seven in football right now, just in terms of production. I mean, because if you take James Conner away from Arizona, you're going to ask Josh Dobbs to go win you the game. You're going to ask Dobbs and the company to try to win a shootout between Dak Prescott and, guys like CeeDee Lamb catching the ball. I'm just not sure that's something Arizona plans on doing. And we saw them a little bit, at least in the second half. When they get behind, that offense completely changes, and not for the better.
Right. It's definitely not a team that you feel is going to be what's the word I'm looking for?
Great.
Not great for sure. Resilient. Great. They're going to be a team that really struggles to put together a consistent 60 minutes, at least as of week 3. That could change. It absolutely could. But I feel like you shouldn't be anticipating and expecting it to be at that point just yet. And again, you're going into a game where you're facing an absolute buzzsaw of a defense. Just have the expectations lowered a little bit. Classic, expect to be disappointed, and you'll never be disappointed.
100%. And moving on to the Cowboys offense, Richie, Number 1 in points per game, number 4 in third down conversions, number 2 in touchdowns per game, number 2 in rushes per game, number 8 in rushing yards per game, and number 8 in completion percentage. I wanted to put this tweet up here to kind of encapsulate that Dallas does everything really well. They're not a run-heavy team. They're not a pass-heavy team. They can do everything, and they will do everything in multiple facets in order to score the football. Whether that's Tony Pollard getting the end zone twice per game, whether that is a guy like Michael Gallup potentially taking over, if Marco Wilson can do a good job on CeeDee Lamb. I mean, just there's so many different ways, and like Dak Prescott turned the ball over a lot last year. The fact that he's been able to cut down on their turnovers, take care of the ball, and throw some pretty good dots in the process. I mean, we've always kind of pinned Dallas as this very talented team on paper, and I feel like for the first time in maybe a minute, this team isn't just good on paper. This offense is clicking on an actual football field.
They look like the Super Bowl contenders that we consistently set them up to be, right? You've got Dak Prescott so far playing very good, very clean football. You've got the run game is clicking right now with Tony Pollard. CeeDee Lamb looks like a top 5, maybe even a top 3 receiver in the league right now. The offensive line is still very good. The defense looks outstanding. They're very well coached right now. Everything appears to be falling in line for Dallas at the moment. And we'll be paying extra close attention to them this year because you have all the expectations of waiting for them to finally arrive. It feels like this might be the year, like you said, that they have finally arrived.
Dude, I don't know what is up with the sun coming through all of a sudden. Gotta love the blinds. But no, man, it's just like Dallas has always had kind of that potential to be great, but now that they're actually like realizing it, and going to a almost friendly Cardinals stadium. I mean, you have to figure that the Cowboys fans are definitely going to take over at State Farm come Sunday. Not exactly news. Sure. Yeah. And the fact that Arizona was on offense last week against the Giants and like there was crazy noise being made whenever the Giants were like amping up the away crowd. That's a different topic for a different day. Keys to the game. I think there are 3 vital keys to the game. The Cardinals need to establish if they're indeed going to pull off the upset. I think they're 12.5-point underdogs. I think that's the second largest spread in the NFL this week. I'm interested to see how the Diggs news kind of tweaks that. But keys to victory, you already hit on the first one. Win your second and third matchups. The number 1 guys like Marquise Brown, they're going to get dealt the cards that they dealt. If Michael Wilson, if Rondale Moore can really take advantage of the lack of depth now in Dallas, especially in the secondary, I really like the chances of moving the ball and at least trying to match the offensive output. Number 2, contain CeeDee Lamb. If you look at Dallas's numbers, really it's CeeDee Lamb and me and you in that wide receiver core. Brandon Cooks hasn't really been able to do anything. Michael Gallup, same as well. I think Tony Pollard is their second leading pass catcher, if I remember correctly.
He is with 49 yards.
Sheesh, man.
I got it in front of me.
Contain CeeDee Lamb, and I think you'll be golden. And then third and finally, Richie, not a lot of people talk about this. Everybody puts the blame on the players, but I sure do think the coaching staff has been very much outcoached in both games where they carried double-digit leads heading into the third quarter. I simply think they failed to adjust, and like you're about to say, you need to adjust.
Yes, 100%. That's where games are won and lost, Donnie, is being able to make those adjustments. And if you're not able to make game time adjustments, then it just catches up with you. And the Cardinals have seen that. They could be a 2-0 team. We could be talking about the Cardinals as a 2-0 football team and shocking the world, because I would assume that their wins over under were probably set at 0.5. Like they're playing quality football, but they're not playing 60 minutes. And that's where you find the separation between quality teams and good teams and great teams who cover. And right now, the Cardinals are not any of them. They need to find a way to play the full
They've covered
60 minutes.
their last 2 games.
Well, then they're a great team. That's literally all that matters. Yeah. Go 0-17 if you have to. But if you cover all 17 games, oh, man, dude, you are my
People are gonna
darling.
love you.
Yes, 100%. Suddenly, Arizona fans that are betting on the Cardinals are all in on this team, right?
They took the bus.
Yes. God bless sports betting, man.
But I mean, before we get out of here, do you have anything else to add? It's a very interesting matchup because, like you said, the Cardinals have indeed been competitive in the first 2 weeks. I don't think anybody really expected them to be maybe 1-1 or 2-0 at this point. They are 0-2, which I feel like was kind of, like I said, expected. Do you think they can pull off the upset? Like, what's like the scale of 1 to 10? How confident are you that they can walk out of State Farm Stadium with a win?
1.
I'd go like 2. I'm gonna double your confidence. I'm gonna go 2.
Donnie, not to be a wet towel, but this Cowboys team is legit. This is one of the better Cowboys teams we've seen. And don't get me wrong, there's still holes. They still need someone to step up as their number 2 receiver. They still need to be able to overcome the Trayvon Diggs loss. And we haven't even seen how they're going to do that yet. So for all we know, they might just not be able to. So there's a lot here that Dallas has to prove. But Dallas is already so far ahead of what the Cardinals can even try to field right now.
Yeah.
Look, if they pull off the upset, I would be ecstatic. I have seen this team come close, but not be able to finish twice now. And you're playing a team that is so much supremely more talented than the 2 teams you just played. You couldn't close the gate on the Giants and the Commanders. And if you can't finish those games, I have no faith in you to be able to go up against Dallas and be able to do that. And it's not just that it's Dallas, it's that it's a championship caliber team. So throw out the bias that Cardinal fans have, and we hate Dallas, blah, blah, blah. If this is X team, right, I'm taking X over the Cardinals because they're more talented, and the Cardinals have shown me that they're not able to play a full 60 minutes. If they had done that, maybe I'm a little more confident, but I'm just not. Sorry.
I was gonna say if you're a Cardinals fan and you're hoping for them to get the number 1 pick next year, the first 2 weeks have almost played out perfectly, right? I mean, they've been competitive. They've shown flashes of what they could potentially be as a fully healthy team, but they just haven't been able to win. And I think that's due to a lack of talent. I also think that's due to lack of experience in the coaching staff. I mean, the offensive coordinator Drew Petzing got very, very conservative down the stretch of both games. We saw last week against the New York Giants, defensive coordinator Nick Rallis got very, very loose in terms of his coverage, like, play calling and all that other good stuff too. Jonathan Gannon is still trying to figure out, his own way as a head coach. So a lot of growing pains, and I think those will continue against the Dallas Cowboys. Do you have an official score in mind? Because I think I'm going to go 28-13 Dallas. I think that's my official stamp.
Man, I didn't put too much thought into this. I'm not thinking this is going to be close, Donnie. I'll say 31-10.
Okay. So we both have the Cowboys covering 12.5.
Yes, very much so.
All right, there you go. That's the lock of the century right there. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter at RichardBouts36, at Donnie Druin on Twitter. Thursday Night Football is kicking off here in about 20 minutes, so we definitely hope you enjoy that. You can go and follow our work at allcardinals.com or si.com/NFL/Cardinals. Everybody, enjoy the game. We will be back next week to recap it and look ahead to week 4 against San Francisco 49ers. But till then.